I want to unpack a lot of the stuff that you've already spoken about.
Yeah.
And like I do with most of the guests that come on the podcast,
Yeah, go on.
you know what's
No,
coming.
no, it's all right.
Take me back to your childhood. What was it like growing up
Well,
in London?
I grew up in North London in various parts. I started off in Tottenham and I lived there until I was about sort of 16, maybe, yeah, about that time. And my mum and dad was together. They broke up when I was about 10. There was like, my parents had me in a time when, you know, I'm mixed race, so my parents is like, my dad's Caribbean, Jamaican, my mum's English, but my dad was born here, so he's very much, he's a, I don't know if he's first generation from the Windrush. And so I had a very sort of mixed childhood in that I was sort of integrated with both sides of my family. I lived in at a time when most people that I know is talking about this with a friend the other day, where you grew up with your aunts and uncles and cousins, and everyone was always in and out of each other's houses, and that's kind of like what it was. But yeah, my parents broke up when I was about sort of 10. There was a lot of sort of disruption around that sort of time, and sort of prior to that, my mum, her family, again, they all lived quite close by, and then when I got to and then sort of throughout my sort of late, sort of like from sort of 10 to 16, it was probably a lot of, there's a lot of moving around, a lot of disruption. And then I think that my mum was pretty much, she was quite sort of entrepreneurial herself, always like trying new things, doing things. And so was my dad, actually. My dad still is. And I think that's probably had a bit of an influence on my approach to life and how, if something's not working out, we'll just try something else, do something else, And it's not sort of quitting, it's just that thing didn't work out, just do something, try another thing. But then sometimes I do think it's to a bit of my detriment because you never really entirely focus on one thing.
I am guilty of that myself.
So
Do you have a relationship with both your parents?
yeah, I do. My dad is my dad lives close by, and my mum doesn't. She lives up north. Well, not up north. She lives in the East Midlands. Yeah, so I don't see her as much because she's further away. But I think they had like a very sort of kind of tough time, and I think for a number of reasons. There's a lot of stuff that happened when I was younger, and that stuff is just yeah,
You
hard
mentioned
for
the word
people.
disruption. What does that mean to you? And how has it impacted you?
I think when your parents separate, you kind of always feel, I don't want to repeat that. I don't want to be like, I would like to, maybe, maybe I want that. But then I think that when you see people that you like, if your parent or parents are separated, or even if you have like a mum that's like raising you on your own, or a dad, whatever, I think it gives you, it's not really a thing where you think it can't be done. So you never think, I could never like be a single parent, or I could never be on my own. So yeah, I think that's how it kind of maybe impacts you. But I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a thing. I actually think that's quite positive to be quite independent, because I think a lot of people end up staying in things that can be quite toxic and negative for them. And traditional values, which I do still think traditional values have their place in like modern society, we also have to like remember that some of the traditional values were stem from like really archaic times when people only lived to like 40. So being together forever, you was going to die at 40 anyway, so it didn't really matter. So being together forever when you're like until you're 90, it's
There's a
out
whole
of
world,
date. Yeah. And then also as well, you just don't, not everything has to be so I know people now that have separated in a very sort of civil, diplomatic, way, and they're happier apart.
yeah.
But then I know people that have stayed, and it's not necessarily the best thing for them.
I completely agree with you. Me being one. Me being one of those people. I think we live in a generation now where it's more common to actually separate and, like you said earlier, try new things. I'm not saying that's what people should do. Not saying that for 1 minute, but I myself, people know that obviously. Yes, I'm 30. I've got 3 kids, divorced, but that doesn't mean that I've not tried everything I possibly can to work out the marriage. However, it didn't work out. We actually get on better now than we did when we was together. However, when my parents separated, it did impact me massively. And I did stay there, admittedly, too long for the wrong reason. So, and my ex-wife knows that. Oh. Which I hold my hands up to. But that was obvious. That was obvious to her, and it was obvious for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And it does cause an issue. It causes an issue between you two, and it causes an issue with you and the kids. So yeah, I mean it is like 100% agree with you. So 10 to sort of 16, all your school years, what were they like?
Well, they're all right. I mean, school was pretty. I think I could have had a better education, but again, you don't know what you don't know, really. I mean, I went to an okay school in that there was. I mean, it wasn't a good school in terms of academic kind of education, but in terms of the people that went there, it was pretty. There's nothing really massive to report on, neither good nor bad. Like I weren't bullied at school. I weren't a bully. I wasn't hugely popular. I wasn't hugely unpopular. I was sort of very middle of the road. It was very. It was at a time when the area that I went to school in was very. The first school I went to a school in Tottenham, and that was a little bit. Yeah, it was a little bit rough around the edges, and then I changed schools, and went to a school in Enfield, which was really. It was not diverse at all in terms of racial demographic.
For anyone watching, I'm Arsenal, she's Tottenham, so Tottenham is rubbish.
Yeah. So, and I'm not a football supporter, so like whatever. But I would say Tottenham though, sorry. So I went to school, and then I went to this other school, and it was just very sort of, it was mainly sort of English, really English, very sort of English working class demographic, and then a couple of a lot of like kids that were from Tottenham that used to go down on the bus, and I was part of that sort of group of people, kids, mainly sort of like we were like of Caribbean descent or and we went there, and I think it was like kids were sent there because it was a better education than some of the schools down in Haringey. And it was okay. I mean, there was nothing, the kids, and now the people that I know from that school, we've all done all right. Again, everyone I know, there's no one, I can't report any sort of people who have been, terrible things have happened to them. If I ever bump into anyone, I'm always hearing good things like, oh, I've got, a couple of kids, I'm married, I've got a nice home, got business, or, there's always really positive things. So, that's really, school. It was maybe a bit boring. That was it really.